And I didn't know when I suplexed Triple H on a pallet that a jagged shard of wood had gone into his calf. It was one of the best matches I've ever had. The truth is, I'll admit, Taz got a bigger reaction for his debut than I got for the main event Royal Rumble. Triple H was bringing out the best of me to the point where after I did it, I looked at the video afterwards and thought, did they speed that up? Because I don't move that fast. And I'm thinking, with all respect to Bret Hart, he didn't have the 2000 Triple H to work with. Like, he had the 96 Hunter Hearst Helmsley to work with. And so, yeah, I've been in the ring with a lot of the best. And Triple H was one of the greats.
Through 1999, your body's pretty beat up, and you think you're going to be retiring in a tag match with the Hollies against Al Snow, and then Steve Austin gets injured, so you're going to do these matches with Triple H. Talk about the Royal Rumble Street Fight as Cactus Jack, because we hadn't seen you as anything near that character in a while.
Yeah. My matches were starting to suffer. I remember somebody asked Triple H, like, wow, Mick Foley's body must be falling apart. And this is like 98. He goes, no, actually he gets around pretty well. And then within that next year, everything I'd done started coming back to haunt me. I think of all the moves I did, the dumbest may have been not replacing my knee pads once I lost them. There were so many things I did, just even dropping to the ground, even dropping to the concrete on your knees from a foot, or something like that, resulted in so many small cracks in my kneecap that when I went to my orthopedic guy, he called in everybody in the office to look at it because they'd never seen anything quite like it. So I went from feeling pretty good to having trouble doing just about anything. It was starting to show in my matches, to the point where a couple moves in that Hollies match on SmackDown had to be edited because I fell down one time and I was struggling with head issues. I was driving past my home on a few occasions, couldn't remember where I lived. And I went into Vince and I told him I felt like I needed to retire. And he asked me why. I talked to him about my knees. He was like, Mick, you need to lose some weight. And I said, Vince, sometimes I can't even remember where I live. And at that moment he said, you've just had your last match. So for all his faults, which are minimal, when I told him about my head injury, he was willing to let one of his biggest stars retire for the sake of his health. And then as fate would have it, Steve got in the car accident, and I was asked if I thought I could step up and have good matches with Triple H. And Triple H, he was already a huge star, but he wanted to prove himself as a main event singles competitor, and he saw in me a way to increase his credibility, his toughness, which I was really flattered that he spoke about in his Hall of Fame speech. And I saw in him a way to go out with pride. Instead of having my last match being one that had to be edited for content, I saw a chance to ride off into the sunset with a few great matches. First, it was just supposed to be the New York City Street Fight. And it was one of the best matches I've ever had. And I didn't know when I suplexed Triple H on a pallet that a jagged shard of wood had gone into his calf. And I was wondering, like, why is he bleeding? And he's such a professional that he not only kept working, but he worked that injury into the match and gave me at the time the send-off like that I couldn't have written myself, like a storybook ending. And over the next, I think within the next 24 hours, it was decided that we would have a cell match, and there'd be a loser retires match. And I don't know if you know this, but I lost because I'm Mick Foley, and that's what I do. But thank you. I was riding with the OVW champion known as J-Ro, right? She lived in the Nashville area when I lived there. And we were riding to OVW, and she said, what's the most important part of a comeback as a heel? And I said, bringing the best out of your babyface, encouraging them to go to levels they didn't know they could go to. And then I told her the story. That's what Triple H did for me. As many times as I'd hit the running knee in the corner, which more accurately would be called the running flaccid knee, flaccid thigh in the, the flaccid inner thigh, that's not a good name for a move, right? That was the secret in protecting people, is there was a little bit of cushioning there before the impact was made. I'd done it a bunch of times, but Triple H was bringing out the best in me to the point where after I did it, I had a little issue with my sternum because I'd done it 100 times, probably more. I'd been used to hitting the move at a certain speed. This was one of only 2 times where I looked at the video afterwards and thought, did they speed that up? Because I don't move that fast. And it was Triple H bringing it out of me that I had been moving that fast. And when it came to the forearms in the corner, it wasn't 10 like it usually was. It was like, come on, Mick, come on, Mick, come on, Mick. And it was like 25, 26, 27, like fastest and most I'd ever done. And I'm not just saying that because Triple H runs a company I might one day want to return to. I'm saying it because he was one of the best ring generals that I've ever been with. And not to go back to Bret and say something negative, but he had said he didn't see Triple H as a top guy. And I'm thinking, with all respect to Bret Hart, he didn't have the 2000 Triple H to work with. Like, he had the 96 Hunter Hearst Helmsley to work with. And so, yeah, I've been in the ring with a lot of the best, and Triple H was one of the greats.
And did you know coming out of that street fight, because people talk about that as being one of the best Royal Rumble matches of all time. You talked earlier about how in Madison Square Garden at Survivor Series 96, you weren't even allowed your family backstage. This is the main event of the Royal Rumble. It's still talked about today. Did you know when it was done that it had been a classic?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got the feeling, and the truth is, I was a little surprised the reaction coming out wasn't as strong, and I'll admit, Taz got a bigger reaction for his debut than I got for the main event of Royal Rumble. But within a few minutes, I think it was obvious we were on to something, and it was special. And then when Triple H, when the shard of wood went into his leg, and I think at one point we reenacted the handcuffing with a much more comfortable set of handcuffs. It had a little bit of a chain, so it wasn't as much a strain. Rock came out and he unlocked the handcuffs, which is a nice book ending to that story. And yeah, when you're in it. You know when you're in it. And I've said this to you before, that I'm not a great match guy as much as I am a great moments guy, because talented wrestlers can have a great match on a weekly basis, right? And it's kind of big moves, lots of kickouts, talented guys, everything they do looks good. And they all become a blur. But those great moments in time that stand out because you remember exactly how you feel when it happened. This fellow wasn't born for many years after Hell in a Cell, but you know the match, right? And it's surprising to me as someone who used to kind of resent the Hell in a Cell because I thought my career stood for more than just that one match. It's surprising to me that at least half of the people who asked me about the match were not even born when it took place. And that's when I realized, man, people are handing this match down to the next generation. And I was somebody who specifically remembered Jimmy Superfly Snuka leaping off the top of the cage on Don Morocco. And as soon as he landed, I turned around and I looked at the people because I was always somebody who looked at reactions. And I saw grown men crying and strangers hugging each other. And I remember specifically thinking, one day I want to make people feel exactly like I feel now. And I didn't realize I'd accomplished that with Hell in a Cell. And without that as like a really big exclamation point on my career, I don't think that these post-wrestling years would have been as good to me. So I'm thankful for it. I love it. I appreciate everyone who's ever watched it. I appreciate the memes that turn up in a World Cup football game. And I hear rumor that Scotland might be participating in a... But you know when a team goes up 3-0 in the first few minutes and then a meme jumps up, enough's enough, somebody stop the damn match. JR's calls have become so iconic that there's a gentleman out there who's got over 1 million streams with a song called Hell is in Pittsburgh Tonight or Hell is in Pittsburgh that's comprised 100% of legitimate Jim Ross calls. And it's a thing of beauty. If you have a chance to check it out, please do.
I also appreciate when you corrected someone about saying you tossed off The Undertaker, or Undertaker tossed you off. You said...
Nobody wants to think of The Undertaker that way, and it may give you some clue as to why the Spanish announcers were always diving for cover. No.